White House has announced that President Biden and the First Lady will travel to New Orleans on Monday to grieve with those impacted by the New Year's Day truck attack. Here's a look at Bourbon Street, which has now reopened. And as you can see, a vigil now marks the scene where 14 people were killed and dozens others were injured. We are also hearing from the brother of the attacker. Let's listen.
Everything was just how he had always been with me and around the rest of his family, you know, full of love, well-mannered, well-tempered, helpful. This is completely out of character for him, you know, these actions. And they're also not any type of representation of what it means to be a Muslim.
Let's bring in CBS News correspondent Jason Allen, who spoke to the attacker's brother. Jason, we'll discuss more about what he said, but I do want to ask you more about the investigators. They returned to his house in Houston, Texas. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, they did, and that happened somewhat unexpectedly earlier today, Lindsay. They returned, and now they have gone again. So we'll set the scene for you. The street you're looking at back here behind me, that was blocked off this morning. That's a street that leads to the neighborhood where Shamsud-Din Jabbar was renting a trailer. Now, investigators were there on New Year's Day, and we know from our reporting here at CBS that investigators who win were able to find materials that could be used for bomb making, but they finished with it. And they opened the scene back up. All the law enforcement from the county sheriff's office left. Media, we were there yesterday talking to neighbors. And then, without warning this morning, sheriff's office came back to the scene. They blocked the road off again. And after about 2.5 hours, they towed a car, a gray Nissan Altima, away from the scene. And then just as quickly, everyone cleared it again. So no information yet on exactly what they took, what they were looking for, but definitely doing some more work back here at Jabbar's residence this morning.
And what else did Jabbar's brother say about him and the attack?
Well, he got to know his brother a lot more in the last 18 months, and that is because their father had suffered a stroke, and it was left up to the sons to care for him. But he knew his brother as someone who was smart and charismatic and seemed to have everything together, but had gone through some stresses with the health issues of their father, also some stresses through their divorce, and the younger brother had noticed some changes in his older brother, especially related to his faith. Here's what he said.
He's been a practicing Muslim since he was a kid and everything, and I think he took a step away from the religion at some point in his life, and then he came back into it. Maybe this time around he was going to take it a little more seriously. He didn't party anymore, he didn't drink, he didn't do drugs, he didn't have sex outside of marriage, you know, things like that.
And so still, Lindsay, even as I asked him, well, do you go back now and do you think about those conversations again? And should something new stand out to you, some sort of red flag? And he told me, no, nothing really does. He didn't see anything from his conversations or any signs that his brother had showed him that something like this may be in the works.
Jason, Bourbon Street is back open. What can you tell us about the new security measures in place?
It is back open, and today New Orleans police officials made a point of telling everybody that they are going to see an increased presence of security. It's going to be not just New Orleans police, but other agencies that are going to be doing that. It is not just going to be for big events like Mardi Gras or the Super Bowl or other parades. It's going to be something that happens constantly. We also know, Lindsay, that they have brought in these barriers now, Archer barriers. They're L-shaped. That's to prevent cars from being able to drive over them and get into intersections. Those are things they can put out quickly, and they can move to different intersections when they need to.
I got to be quick with you, Jason. What can you tell us about the president's visit to New Orleans Monday?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the president said today, he told some of our colleagues that he had spoken with some of the families. We know that he's going to be here, not here, but in New Orleans, about 6 hours east of where we are. He is expected to visit as well with some local officials when he comes to the city Monday.
Jason Allen, thank you so much. Federal intelligence agencies are expressing their concerns over potential copycat attacks following this week's incidents in New Orleans and Las Vegas. In a joint statement, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and National Counterterrorism Center said, quote, the surge in vehicle ramming attacks in 2016 and 2017 suggests that successful attacks, particularly in the West, may inspire similarly motivated actors to adopt the same method. This tactic is likely to remain attractive for aspiring attackers, given vehicles' ease of acquisition and the low skill threshold necessary to conduct an attack. The statement also warns that law enforcement should remain on high alert once a vehicle has stopped due to the threat of secondary weaponry. The The chief of the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department addressed this week's attacks at a press conference today as she discussed the impacts it's having on her city ahead of several high-profile events in our nation's capital.
Since the incidents, we have begun actively working with our local, federal, and state partners to share intelligence and to provide support for the ongoing investigation. As of this moment, there are no credible known threats here in the District of Columbia, but out of an abundance of caution, I have heightened our security postures across the city in light of the recent events.
I want to bring in CBS News national security contributor and former Assistant Secretary for Counterterrorism at the Department of Homeland Security, Sam Vinograd, for more. I mean, Sam, that was chilling what I had read to you, that memo. What more are we learning about the threat of possible copycat attacks?
What we're learning is that, unsurprisingly, the risk of copycat attacks is increased after a high-profile event like we saw in New Orleans. Individuals that may already be on their way to radicalizing and mobilizing to violence now see how effective vehicular ramming is as a tactic. In addition to that, they see the high level of media and public attention on this attack and may seek the spotlight for themselves. That is why, and Lindsay, I was part of drafting and disseminating a lot of these law enforcement and intelligence bulletins. That is why federal authorities are overdoing it when it comes to disseminating information about potential threats. They want law enforcement officials all across the country to be on heightened alert and also want to warn the public about what to look out for going forward.
How are these threats factoring into upcoming events like the events surrounding President Jimmy Carter's funeral beginning tomorrow, the ratification of the election on Monday, Trump's inauguration January 20th?
Law enforcement already was taking precautionary measures to avoid any sort of vehicular ramming incident, but based upon the potential vulnerabilities or defects in place on Bourbon Street, undoubtedly, law enforcement at all levels of government, federal, state, and local, are reviewing whether any vulnerabilities continue to exist, for example, around the Capitol, around the Super Bowl, around other mass gatherings that can be addressed by using other types of barriers. In addition to that, from an intelligence perspective, authorities are probably doubling down to try to monitor chat rooms where there are known ISIS supporters and other chat rooms where individuals may be making statements professing a desire to follow in the footsteps of the perpetrator in New Orleans.
Sam Vinograd, thank you.